How to achieve impossible goals. We all think about having goals. Some of us set them, some of us don't. Some of us set them and never do anything with them. But very few of us actually set an impossible goal, a goal that's so outlandish, and then actually create a plan to go achieve that goal. We all want to do it, but for a variety of reasons, most of us don't do this. So my goal today is to talk to you about how do you actually set an impossible goal and then go achieve it. Today, we're going to focus on the setting of the goal, how we set this goal to set us up to win. Now, what's really interesting when we set goals is we can have goals that are attainable and we can have goals that are impossible, outlandish. So what kind of goals do we set? In general, we want to set goals that push us, that stretch us, that put us outside our comfort zone. When we set goals in this way, this is a phenomenal chance for growth. It's a chance for us to smash our limitations and open up our mind. When we achieve impossible goals, our confidence skyrockets. But there's a path to setting an impossible goal. Now, just the word impossible can bring up stress and bring up limitations and self-doubt and all of these different aspects that make it difficult to achieve a goal. So I'm going to take you through a process today that's useful. So rather than going out and saying something outlandish that your subconscious mind's like, oh, there's no way that's going to happen. And conversely, setting a goal that's just so easy, it's like a layup and it doesn't motivate you. We want to talk about how do we set an impossible goal, but make it seem possible. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to look at where we currently are. We're going to take an inventory. Then what we're going to do is once we have our inventory and we have a sense of the kind of goal we want to set, we're going to set a reasonable goal. So what is a reasonable goal? A reasonable goal is a goal that is something similar to what you already have. It's slightly better than where you currently are. So it depends on the goal. Some cases it may be improving by 10%. Some cases might be improving by 50%. Some cases it could be improving by 100%. So we're going to set a range of 1 to 2 times where you currently are. Once we think about what that would look like, then we're going to set a radical goal. And a radical goal is not 1 to 2 times, it's 4 to 5 times. It's radically different than where you currently are. So we're going to set that goal. Once we've set the radical goal, then we go to the impossible goal. And the impossible goal is 10 times where you currently are. Now, the reason we set these steps is we jump right to impossible, our brain cannot go there. But if we crawl, going to reasonable, walk, going to radical, and then run, going to impossible, we're building a path to the impossible game or to the impossible goal. I actually like to call these impossible games. I learned this from my coach. One of the reasons we call it an impossible game is anytime we can gamify something, it makes it very interesting. It makes it challenging. We all want to win games. So if we gamify it, it gives it a different feel rather than just a goal. Now, going back to this, one thing I encourage you to do, what makes this successful is when you set a reasonable goal, you want your reasonable goal to be like, to push yourself. Yeah, we could set it at where we currently are. That's no challenge. But to do double what you did, a lot of people can't even fathom double. So what I would encourage you to do is when you set a reasonable goal, don't hold back. Put it out there. Be aggressive. Because what you're going to find is you're playing tricks on your brain. When you set a reasonable goal and you push yourself, well, now you really have to push yourself for radical. So then when you set the radical goal, now you really, really got to stretch to get to impossible. The result is something you never would have thought of on your own right out of the box. By working through this progression, impossible starts to become mind-blowing. And I find, so I was just finishing up, I still have some of my annual goal setting to do, but I've been working on it. And I was finishing up several aspects of my life last week. And when I got to the impossible, because I pushed myself in the reasonable and the radical, when I got to the impossible, I was like, oh shit, I never thought of that. Like, that's amazing. And I started to get really, really excited because possibilities that I did not know existed started to show up on my brain when I started thinking about impossible. So let's work through an example. Let's say you make $200,000 a year in earnings. Well, reasonable would be make 200 to 400,000. Radical would be to make 800,000 to $1 million, and impossible would be to make $2 million. Now, you're going to push your own buttons when you do this, and you're going to start to realize that you have a psychological ceiling when it comes to money, and you have a set point. What is your set point? Your set point is like the temperature you set on a thermostat. When you set your thermostat to 70 degrees, that's your set point. So as the furnace goes on and the air conditioning comes on and it gets cold outside or hot during the day, the temperature is moving up and down inside your house. But every time it gets too high, the air conditioner kicks on and brings it down. Every time it gets too low, the heater kicks on and brings it back to 70. So you have a financial set point. It might be $200,000 a year. So you're going to have to push yourself to reset your set point. So you might, in your mind, you might be, well, I make 200 grand a year and I could see myself making 300 or 400, but that's about it. Well, there's your set point and your ceiling. The purpose of this exercise is to raise your set point and smash your ceiling. So it's going to make you think in a very different way. You're going to have to think differently to pull this off. So let's look at some key aspects of this. When you start this process, I want you to avoid focusing on the how. Don't worry about the how, because if you start going, well, 800,000 to $1 million, how am I ever going to do that? Well, guess you're already done, because your brain is going to find reasons why you can't do it. So we want to get the how out of the way. We want to remember that what we want to focus on is what we want. We want to focus on what we want, not what we don't want. We want to focus on what we want, not what our limitations are. When we focus on the how, we're highlighting our limitations. Get those out of the way and focus on what you want. Do not get attached to the path. Do not get attached to the how. You don't know the how, and you don't need to know the how. You just need to get clear about what it is you want. Okay? Now, once we get clear about what we want, then we got to ask ourselves the question. Because one of the issues when we set impossible goals is we can be completely bullshitting ourselves. If you've never made over $200,000 a year and now you want to make $2 million, there's an element that if we don't take certain steps, you're bullshitting yourself. And you know it. Because you have to be a certain kind of person. You have to have a certain mindset. You have to have a certain set of skills. You have to have certain connections. You have to have certain habits to be somebody who can make $2 million a year. So we're not going to bullshit ourselves. We're going to be really truthful about where we are. And once we're truthful about where we are, then we start to ask the question, who would I need to become to be someone capable of making $2 million a year? Who would you need to become? How would you need to shift your mindset and your thought life? What skills would you need? Who would you need to know? What habits would you have to adopt? Would you have to get up earlier? Would you have to go to bed later? Would you have to prioritize your top goal first thing in the morning? Or would you have to prioritize working out to give your body energy? Or would you have to prioritize eating differently? In your trading, what skill sets do you need to have that you do not have? Do you need to understand volume at a better level? Do you need to track all your trades and track what we call metadata and all the data around your trades? Do you need to do your debrief every day? Do you need to write your plans every weekend? What are the habits you need? And who would you need to know? Would you need to hire a coach? Would you need to hire a nutritionist? Would you need to get a mentor? Would you need to get a buddy that you partner up with? Would you need to go out and introduce yourself to 5 new people? Who do you need to know? Once we start to do this, we start to get clear about who we need to be at the identity level. And if you want to succeed, you're going to succeed at the identity level. You are going to adopt a new identity. Then I encourage you to go through an exercise I have many of my students go through. It's called 21 Ways. 21 ways that I could. So in this exercise, you go, what are 21 ways I can make $2 million or more? And or more means we're not going to limit ourselves, because what if God wanted to give you 5 million or 3 million? We're not going to limit ourselves. But what's 21 ways I can make $2 million or more this year? Then you set 10 minutes on a timer and you just write or type the 21 ways. There are no wrong answers. You don't need a $2 million idea. You could get there on 10, $200,000 ideas. You could get there on 4 or $500,000 ideas. Some ideas may be so outside the box, but it's okay. There's no wrong answers. Write them all down, all 21 of them. Then when you're done, go back and look at it. What you're going to find is some of them are just ridiculous and you're going to cross them off the list. You're like, I wrote it down because Chuck said to do it, but there's no way I'm doing that. Okay. But there's going to be other ones. There's going to be other ideas that come up that you're going to be like, wow, I never thought of that before. And what you're doing is you're creating an abundance of ideas. When you're done with this process, let's look what you've done. You've expanded your mind, creating a pathway to getting clarity about what your impossible goal or your impossible game actually is. You've eliminated the how up front, and you focus on who would you need to become to make $2 million a year. What does that person look like? Then you identify 21 ways. Now we kind of get to the how, 21 ways that you could make $2 million in a year. You've done major subconscious programming, putting all these questions out there to be answered. Write all of it down, let it sit overnight or a couple of days, and then come back and revisit it. What you're going to see is something that seemed absolutely crazy and impossible suddenly starts to become possible. I love impossible goals. I love playing the impossible game. I will play this game the rest of my life. I'm so grateful for it. How about you? Are you ready to make the impossible possible? I'll let you go for this week. God bless. Tune in next Tuesday. We're coming into the year. There's only a couple Trader Tip Tuesdays left. Tune in next Tuesday where I share more tips like this to help you perform at an elite level. Good night. God bless.